If you're a social scientist interested in agentic coding, the most popular agentic coding tools may actually be the worst for your research. I'm an economics PhD who's been working in industry for the last 6 years. I don't do a lot of academic work anymore, but the work I do is academic adjacent. I'm doing exploratory data analysis on messy data, working with massive data sets, building data engineering pipelines, and I build simple models, some causal analyses too, and I've found agentic coding tools to be extremely helpful for this work. So I'm going to talk about my experience using agentic coding tools and also give you some feedback on which tool you should be considering. So first off, there's really only 3 tools to consider at all. These are Claude Code, Codex, and Cursor. There are other tools out there. To be honest, they're kind of science experiments like Letter Code. They're just not as good as the other ones like Augment Code and Klein, or they're really special built for software developers for specialized tasks like code review, like Greptile, a few others. And if you get really sophisticated in this world, you might be able to find use for them. But these are really the only 3 that you should consider. So again, Claude Code, Codex, Cursor. Google's sort of experience and models are just always behind on coding to the other ones. Gemini was interesting for coding for some time, maybe in late 2024, but it's been behind since then. Maybe they catch up later, but I don't recommend it right now. And Microsoft Copilot is just a joke. I don't recommend it in the slightest. Okay, so we have 3 tools, and all of them have the same entry level tier of $20 per month. And so if you're looking at each of them, which one should you choose? Your first instinct might be to go with Cursor, because if you're familiar with Stata or SAS or SPSS, at least you get, an IDE in which you can work, and that feels comfortable to everybody. But my advice is to get over your discomfort, learn to use a terminal, because for social science workflows, uh, Claude Code and Codex are going to be much better. You can also use Claude Code and Codex in an IDE like VS Code. It's just they don't come natively with an IDE integration. And what I've found Cursor to be best for is like light touch-ups of front-end web development. But for close to the last year, for any sort of big work, either Codex or Claude Code have simply been ahead of Cursor. And so all of these tools start at $20 per month, but in my opinion, we can sort of discard Cursor as an option. I'll talk about it a bit more later, but we're really considering between Claude Code and Codex. Another important aspect of using Claude Code or Codex is that they come with Claude or ChatGPT subscriptions. Now, at the $20 per month tier, I don't know if I see a huge difference in the value between Claude Code and Codex, like in terms of what you get with a Claude subscription versus a ChatGPT subscription. But if you decide to go for the $200 a month subscription of ChatGPT or Claude, there I think that for most social science work, ChatGPT really wins out, because what you get also with the $200 a month subscription is ChatGPT 5 Pro, or now we're at 5.2 Pro. And that model is really a beast, and it's not something that Opus equals. And I've seen a lot of social scientists, mathematicians really making great productive use of GPT 5.2 Pro with deep research and being able to tackle very hard problems that are at the level of a very good PhD research assistant working for you for 2 to 4 weeks. If you're going to splurge at $200 a month for social science use cases outside of agentic coding, I think ChatGPT wins out. However, there is one point which is quite tricky, which again will now go in Claude Code's favor. So at the $20 a month tier, Claude Code and Codex are maybe roughly the same. at the $200 a month tier, you get ChatGPT 5 Pro, which is just much more powerful than Codex. But an important distinction between Codex and Claude Code is Codex's lack of a plan mode. So if you're using agentic coding, let's say for an exploratory data analysis task, or for some set of descriptive regressions, or for ideating what sorts of problems there are with your identification approach, okay? Like if you want to do any of these kinds of things, then one important distinction is going to be Codex's lack of a plan mode and Claude Code's native plan mode. So what is plan mode? In Claude Code, you can just type in \plan, then type in whatever feature it is that you're working on, or in my workflow, I just talk out loud like what it is that I'm working on. I talk about what data sets I want the coding agent to evaluate, and then in plan mode, Claude Code will work in an optimized way simply to create a plan of what to do before actually doing what it eventually does. With Codex, you can do this too, and that's the way in which I use Codex, is effectively with the plan mode, but it's not native to the tool. And so if you decide to use Codex, which I think is a fine choice, especially if you already have a ChatGPT subscription, and so you've got your Codex already available, you have to be disciplined yourself and do that yourself. Whereas with Claude Code, it's sort of native to the tool and it's very well implemented. The reason this matters so much for social scientists is that I see a lot of people talking about how, oh, I tried it for Stata or I tried it for R and it really didn't work for me. And what I sort of wonder is whether this just reflects a skill issue or it's actually a problem native to the tool. Because a lot of what you have to learn when using agentic coding tools is how do I make sure I am giving it the right context? And a big piece of this is how you interact with the tool, like how you are actually talking with the tool, and you develop a more symbiotic relationship with the tool as you use it more. But part of developing that symbiotic relationship is making sure that the tool has access to the right documentation. Now, the nice thing about all of these agentic coding tools, if you're using Python, is that there's tons of training data for Python, whereas there really is a lot less for R, and there's basically none for Stata, SPSS, SAS, which are these, shitty old proprietary programming languages which hopefully die in the next few years, but are unfortunately still around. So one distinction between the two is that Claude Code kind of gives you these training wheels, which are helpful in the form of plan mode. Codex can give it to you too, but you have to implement it yourself. All right, let's talk about using these tools for writing. So one big reason to use Codex or Claude Code over Cursor is that Codex and Claude Code are much better for writing. Now, my experience with writing with agentic coding tools is that they are best for creating the first draft and not as good for line editing. I'm very particular about my choice of words and like how I order sentences and being precise with my speech. And so I'm not a fan of allowing the tool to like do my line edits. It becomes too slow of a process. It's something that I prefer doing myself. Now, one of the things that Cursor has is a very nice tab completion model, meaning that if you are, let's say, line editing a piece of code just to make some quick front end changes, and you need to make it like across a particular component, then Cursor can do this very quickly. But when I use it for writing, this same kind of like very quick predictive autocomplete feature, I just don't get it to autocomplete correctly in the way I want it to, as consistently as I would need it to for it to be useful. However, using Claude Code or Codex for a first draft, very good. And when you are doing some kind of big, like 50-page paper type, agentic coding task, which you shouldn't be doing. You should like be doing smaller chunks of tasks at a time. But when you are doing that, Claude Code or Codex are much better. Now, like one final distinction to consider between Claude Code and Codex is that if you want to use this tool and then never have to think about optimizing it and refining it for your use case, then I do recommend Codex, because Codex's model, the GPT-2, or rather GPT 5.2 extra high model, which you get on both the $20 a month and the $200 a month plans, but you'll use up your usage pretty quickly on the $20 a month plan, but you get both. That model is incredible. Like, it literally came out today. I've been trying it out for some like tricky ML engineering / ML tasks, and it's been very, very good for like high level deep thinking. Now, the reason why you may want to use Claude Code over Codex is the following. Claude Code is very extensible with what are called skills, which are basically instructions for Claude Code in the form of markdown files, but not exclusively so, which are very particular to some use case. And so, for example, I use a front-end development skill and a Python code reviewer skill and a TypeScript code reviewer skill for different types of the work that I might want to do. What skills allow, which Claude Code has and has made very shareable and very easy to use, and which Codex is just starting to get up to, but is still really far behind. What skills allow is sort of embedding for you as a researcher your own idiosyncratic like tastes and research practices into how Claude Code does things. So like, if you like doing your exploratory data analysis in a particular order, using particular packages, formatting your LaTeX tables in a particular way, then you can, without that much effort, teach Claude Code to do that every time. And once you've done it once, it just works very well every future time that you wanted to do the same thing. And so if you are open to customizing your workflow a little bit, then I would recommend using Claude Code if you have to use just one tool between like ChatGPT and Codex. If you've got $400 a month, buy the most powerful of each of them, or maybe get the $100 a month Claude Code and the $200 a month ChatGPT. But yeah, I hope this was helpful for at least seeing some dimensions on which to explore these tools. So my current like use is that I have the Max Claude Code subscription for $200 a month, and then I've got ChatGPT just at $20 a month, and that works for me right now. But these models are constantly improving, constantly one trying to beat the other, and so this video could get dated very quickly. But at least for now, going into 2026, that's what I recommend. So hope this video was useful, and if you did find it useful, please like and subscribe. Thank you.